the first thing to go through is, what is follow-up? Um, we all know that WIOA has 6 performance measures. We have measurable skill gains, which are pre-post testing, um, someone obtaining the GED, someone um, who exits adult education and enters post-secondary education within the same program year. Those are all measurable skill gains. The other 5 performance measures are follow-up measures. So they are all based on things that students do after they leave our program. The first one is employment, second quarter after the students exit. Then we also want to know about wages that second quarter after they exit, their employment their fourth quarter after they exit, credential attainment, which would be a post-secondary credential, or obtaining the GED, finishing up that process, and then enrolling in post-secondary education or entering employment or being employed. Then we also have effectiveness in serving employers. There are 2 ways that we're going to be measuring this in Kansas. One is employee retention, which would mean when we survey or follow up on individuals they're employed at the same employer the second and fourth quarter after exit. We'll also be looking at repeat business customers, which looks at businesses that we serve that continue accessing our services and also the services provided by Titles 1, 3, and 4. Do they continually hire our students or customers? Do they receive business-specific services? Some of the things that Titles 1 and 3 provide, rapid response. Hopefully they're not receiving rapid response multiple times, but some of the things that they do to provide direct-to-employer services. The preferred method of finding out all of these things for follow-up is data match. We do a data match with the post-secondary system, which is called KEDS. We also do, through the Kansas Department of Labor, we do a query with the unemployment insurance database that will return employment information. There are some limits to these systems. We're limited by geography. For the post-secondary system, we really only have access to public post-secondary information for the state of Kansas. And then for UI data, we're also bound by having a good social security number. So UI data, we also are kind of bound by Kansas, maybe some Missouri data. There is a draft agreement that would give us the ability to query data from all 50 states, but that is probably a long ways out. So we're still going to have to do follow-up in the meantime, and even after that, for individuals who don't have a social security number, we will need to do the follow-up. We've talked about this many times, but it bears repeating. Students do not have to give us a social security number. Doesn't matter if they have one or not. We cannot deny services based on students providing a social security number when they come in to receive services from us. If we don't have a social security number because the student didn't provide it or they didn't have one, if a student works a federal or military job, those jobs don't report to the unemployment insurance, or the student works at a state, we're going to have to do a follow-up survey to collect that information. The reason we're doing it is, unlike under WIA, where if we didn't have a valid social security number, we could exclude individuals from performance measures. Under WIOA, we're not allowed to do that. Individuals without a valid social security number, or that we don't get a return on, even if they do provide a social security number, are automatically counted as a 0 in our performance measures. This means that anyone that we follow up on and we're able to collect supplemental information from is a person that would have been a 0, would have diluted our state performance. We're kind of incentivized in a couple of different ways to do this. One, when all of our local data rolls up to the state, if we have not done a follow-up, it'll dilute our performance measures and we will artificially report lower than what we're actually achieving, which is bad. Another impact on local programs directly is if you are not doing your follow-up, if you're not obtaining information from these individuals, you're not receiving funding points. So your funding could be negatively impacted if we don't follow up on these individuals, find out their employment and their wages, and then some post-secondary ed information as well. So the how of how we're going to do follow-up is through a follow-up collection that is in Pablo. We talked about this at the directors meeting. We kind of had a preview at the conference in October. It has been live for a little while, so some of you have looked at it, but we're going to go into detail today about how you download, do your surveys, and then upload that back to the system. This is a list of all of the data fields that we'll need. Many of these are auto-populated for you so that you'll be able to identify the students you need to survey and who you need to contact. I will be sending this out. I know it looks like a lot. It looks intimidating. I promise you it's not. There aren't that many values that you have to survey the student on. We'll go into detail on those here in just a minute. So at this point, we're going to switch from the PowerPoint to sort of the live demo. So the first step in finding your follow-up file that contains the information on the students you need to follow up on would be to log into Pablo. And then after you're on the main page of Pablo, you may have noticed, if not, on the Pablo menu under Other here, there's a new link called Follow-Up Collection. So you'll want to click on that. Before you do that, you'll want to make sure that you've set the appropriate quarter. So we're going to be playing catch up. We're about to start Q4 of 2018, but we have follow-up to do for quarters 1, 2, and 3. So up here where you would change fiscal years normally, you would hit Change Profile. And then you would go down, you select your fiscal year, you select your quarter. When you select the quarter, you're not actually following up on students from that quarter. When you select the quarter, the system automatically pulls students from previous quarters that you will need to be following up on. So when you select first quarter of 2018, you're actually following up on students who exited during the second quarter of 2017. You don't really need to pay any attention to that calendar yourself. We've designed the system so that when you set the quarter to pull your follow-up file, it will automatically pull the students that you need to follow up on at that point in time. So we're going to start with first quarter of 2018. The system will, for follow-up, will make you do this first. If, for example, you tried to go to second quarter of 2018 and you hadn't done first quarter first and you try to select this follow-up collection here, it will tell you you must lock your previous quarter to continue the collection. So you have to do these in order. Part of that is just to have clean data. Part of that is also when you populate your second quarter follow-up, when you go and it's eventually time to do fourth quarter follow-up on an individual, the system will automatically pull what you uploaded from that second quarter into their fourth quarter so you can see the previous data that they've provided to you. So we will change our profile to first quarter of 2018. Click Update. And then go down here and click the link for follow-up collection. That brings you to sort of the follow-up main page, for lack of a better term. Here you will have a button. You see here second quarter after exit download. When you click that, the system will automatically download a CSV file, which you can open in Excel and start entering your follow-up survey values. Some of the other things that are on this page will become more relevant after we start uploading. One thing to note is currently this green 0 and the check mark, that indicates that we've not uploaded any records to the system. After we upload our file, we should see the total number of students that we followed up on and then uploaded back to the system. There's a link here to upload a file. We'll use that after we've downloaded. And then there's a link here where after you've downloaded something, or after you've uploaded something, you can download that file back so you can see the final version of what you uploaded. So the first thing we're going to do is click second quarter after exit download. And then it may be difficult for you to see because it will be small and I can't make it bigger. In the bottom left here of my browser, you see this temp5386.csv file. If we click that, this opens up the students that we need to follow up on. For our test center, we only have 2 students to follow up on. Your files will have many, many more. I know I've looked at Johnson counties and there are 200 or 300. Some of you will have fewer than that, but you should have somewhere around 20 to 30 or more students per quarter. So when you look at this, it might look intimidating again. You have your column headers over the top, which indicate the data that you'll need to follow up on and ask the student. The first several columns here, the first 12 or so, are automatically populated. So before we look at this any further, we'll go back through the field names and then a description to kind of give you guys an idea of what data you'll be uploading, what valid values are for each field. Your Adult Ed Center code is auto-populated. That's the unique ID code that each Adult Ed Center has. The current selected quarter would be the quarter that you have currently selected or that you're currently in. So for us, this is going to be, at this point, Q1, and then the current fiscal year, so Q1 2018. The student's period of participation. For the follow-up measures, we actually have to follow up on those for each individual period of participation, even if it's only 90 days apart. We'll ask about employment during that time. We'll ask about wages, credentials, all of those things. So you may have to follow up on students more than once, and you may be asking about time periods that are very close together. It shouldn't happen very often, but I know we're getting to the point now where we're starting to have students with multiple periods of participation. Student's last name, student's middle initial, student's first name, the social security number or the ID that you assign to the student, the student's date of birth, the student's phone number, student's email, the student's exit date. Those are all auto-populated. Then there will also be, for your follow-up, a date range that you're asking about. So when you're following up, you're actually asking about a time period that's already passed. So you're asking not about when you call the student what they're currently doing, but what they would have been doing 6 months prior, sometimes even a full year. Then we start getting down to the things where you'll actually be asking the student for their information. Q2 employed, is the student employed or are they not during the second quarter after exit? The valid values for that are either a Y or an N, indicating yes or no. The employer name, which is any string of characters. Try to keep it as short as possible. the weekly hours. So if a student tells you I'm working full-time at Walmart, you ask them is full-time 30 hours, 35 hours, 40 hours, try to get as close as possible to what the student works every week. If it varies, try to get an average number of hours from the student. The post-exit hourly wages, this is the wages per hour that the student earns. So valid values are between 0 and 99.99. If students are making more than that, please let me know. We might be thinking about a career change. But if students are making more than that, we can always make an exception. But this is really to protect. The majority of our students aren't going to be making $100 an hour or more. If a student gives you a value that is not hourly, try to convert that back to an hourly wage based on the number of hours per week. So if a student says, I get paid under the table $100 a week, you know they're working $10 a week, you can convert that to $10 an hour. When we report these values up, we're actually reporting quarterly earnings, so what an individual would have worked for an entire quarter. So we're doing some math on the back end. So we're trying to collect this all in the same format. So we need their hourly wage. The Q4 date range, again, this is auto-populated. When you're following up for the student's fourth quarter after exit, this is the time period you're asking about. Like Q2 after Q2 employment, Q4 employed is yes or no, Y or N. And then we start getting to the post-secondary follow-ups. So enrolled in PSE. So that's if the student has enrolled in post-secondary education. Simply Y or N. The date they enrolled, this doesn't have to be an exact date. It could be the month that they're starting. So you could say August 1st. It could be the first day of classes, maybe August 15th, January, June. Whenever they're starting, get as close as possible. Also, if you're surveying a student and they have multiple post-secondary enrollments, you would want to enter the earliest possible enrollment. Because when we use this, we're going to be using this date to determine if a student has obtained an educational functioning level by exiting adult education and enrolling into post-secondary education within the same program year. So you want to give us the earliest date possible. The format for this is everyone's favorite. It is the year, month, and then the day. So it's a little bit mixed up from what we usually are used to. Post-secondary credential, has the student earned a post-secondary credential? Have they earned a certificate? Have they earned CNA, CMA, maybe a welding credential, an AWS credential? Yes or no. Then we'll need the credential ID. There's actually a list of those. I will be sending it out so that you will have it. There are about 300 of them. But you'll need to enter the specific credential ID or else the system will kick back an error. The date they obtained the credential, again, this could be the date they took an exam. This could be the end of a semester. Try to get it as close as possible. Then the last two fields that you'll enter are the survey date, so the date you actually contacted the student, and then surveyed by. This is to give you guys an idea of who conducted the survey. Really, it can be any string of variables, first name, last name. We had a question that came up this morning about how to indicate, whether or not a student could be contacted. We don't have a field for that at this point. But one thing you can do is in this name of individual completing the survey, you could say, survey conducted by Chris Lemon dash no contact, or couldn't contact, if you want to keep track of that. So those are the valid values for each of the data elements. So now we'll close that. I will be sending that out later so that you can look at that. We'll go back to our follow-up file. So we just downloaded this by clicking this button here. second quarter after exit, that downloaded the CSV file. So this contains every student that you need to follow up on for that particular point in time. This already contains some data from when I did this morning. So normally you would download it, and again, these first 12 fields would be populated as long as the student has given you that information or you've entered it into Pablo. So student phone number, student email. This is to make things easier for you guys, so you have that information ready for the student. You don't have to look it up one by one. You contact the student, fill out this information. So we will fill out some information here. Our first individual is employed. Our second one is not. For this, remember that we clicked the second quarter after exit download, so we're not actually following up on Q4 at this point in time. So you would ignore the Q4 date range and the Q4 employed. But you can see over here for the Q2 date range that we're following up on the time frame between April 1st of 2017 and June 30th of 2017. So enrolled in PSE is a simple Y or N. Again, for the dates, it is that year, month, day format. Post-secondary credential is whether or not the student has obtained one. We'll say that this student has. The credential ID, we'll put that in, CMA. Credential date, we'll say that they just got it. They just took the exam. Maybe yesterday. Survey date would be today. Surveyed by Chris. So when you're done filling it out for all of your students, just double check everything. So, all your center codes will be there. Make sure not to delete any of these. We have selected Q1 of 2018. This is the students' first periods of participation, students' names, and we're following up on the date range here. So now when you save your file, when you're ready to upload it, you're actually going to need to delete the column headers. Hopefully all of you are familiar enough with Excel. You can simply, on this one here for the row, you can right click, go down to delete, and then you'll just be left with the student information and the responses that you provided. Then you'll need to save this file. Make sure to save it somewhere where you can find it. Then an idea or a suggestion with your naming conventions. As part of the upload process, you'll actually have to tell the system how many records you're uploading. So we had 2 students, so we'll be uploading 2 records. So I'm going to name my file FY18Q1. That's the time frame we selected. And then 2 records. We'll click save. We'll pretend that I haven't done this already. Once you're done with that, I know you probably won't get this all done in the same day in the same Pablo session. So once you've collected all your supplemental data and you're ready to upload, you'll go back to Pablo, back to follow-up collection. Make sure you're in the right year, so we're uploading the file for the first quarter of 2018. And then we're going to go here, this link to file upload. We'll click that, and that will take us to the upload screen. And here there's some information that's already been automatically populated for us. This is the center code. This is the code for our test institution. Yours will be different. The term that we're uploading Q1 of 2018. So that's the time period we selected, not the time period we followed up on. We're uploading a CSV file. That's one thing to make sure when you do go and save that file, that you don't convert it to an Excel file. You need to keep it in CSV format. The system won't accept it if you save it as an XLS file. Again, the number of records, we had 2, but this is also a good reason to save the number of records in your file name, because we're going to have to choose the file here where it says upload file. There's a button, choose file. This works like attaching an email attachment used to work, or how our file exchange in Pablo works. Then you'll find the file that you're looking for. So we're looking for FY18 Q1 2 records. Let's select that, click open. You don't have to put in the number of records first. That's why having it in the file name is beneficial, because if you forgot or you weren't sure, this way you won't have to open the file back up and do a count to see how many you have. So you select 2. If you click that again, it makes you re-upload it. Then we'll click upload. And we see we have some problems. So here it says record 1 rejected, error on table. This is the name of the table on the back end. Column Q2 post exit hourly wages, and then it gives us an error code. Value larger than specified, precision allowed for this column. 1 row successfully loaded, 1 row not loaded due to data errors. So we've got some errors with the file, so we'll need to open that back up and look what those might be. It tells us what record was rejected, record 1. So we know that we had problems with this first column here. And so it tells us record 1 was rejected, and then it tells us the column, which was Q2 post exit hourly wages. Now we've taken the column headers off, but you should be able to get a pretty good idea of what each column was for. So we had employer name, number of hours worked per week, and then we had hourly wage. So here, for some reason, I put 100. I think I meant to put 10. Remember that the maximum value for the hourly wage is 99.99. So we'll fix that. We have 10 there now. We save it. And we close that. And then we go back to the file upload screen. So when you get an error, you'll actually have to re-upload a corrected file. So we'll go through that again. We had 2 records. Choose the file. FY18 Q1 record, 2 records. And then we'll upload. It says upload was successful here at the top of the screen. Click OK. We now see, remember I pointed out earlier we had a 0 in the green check mark. We now have 2. That's the total number of records we have uploaded. Here we could go back to the file upload screen if we had additional corrections, or maybe we got a survey back from a student that we want to update, and we need to re-upload a refreshed file. You would go there, follow that same process we just went through. You can download what you'd already uploaded. If you lose it for some reason, you can download what you uploaded, make changes to it, things like that. You can do that until you're finished and you're relatively certain that you're ready to finalize your data. After that, you'll need to do edit reports. So running edits on the file, we'll do another error check. We got an initial upload error. It does some checks when you upload for general errors that the system might find. Running edit checks will do a secondary run to see if there are other errors. So you click Run Edits. It says it's in process. Click OK to continue here at the top of the screen. You can then view your edit report. You have an option either to view 50 at a time or 5,000 or all of them. We'll keep it at 50. We shouldn't have that many errors. So to pull that report, you click Go. And then this is the report that we get. And we see follow-up, invalid credential, see a list of acceptable values on website. Again, I will email you the list of acceptable credentials. Grand total of fatal errors 1. Then we have an edit detail report down here. It shows us that for the student with this ID number, A139999777, we have a fatal error for credential ID CMA1. So I accidentally hit the 1 when we were uploading that credential. So we'll close this out. We'll need to open that file back up. And then if we look down here, we see I put CMA1. So we'll put CMA. That should be correct. We'll save that file. Since we had errors, we'll actually have to go through that upload process again. So we'll click File Upload again. File Upload. We had 2 records. Need to choose that file. Click Upload. Upload was successful. Since we uploaded a new file, we'll have to run edits again to check for errors. Run edits. Click OK. You have to run your edit report, so you would click Go over here on the right-hand side. Click that, and it says your files are clean. You can't actually hit back. You just close out the tab or the window. Now that we've done that and our file is clean, we have a new option here at the bottom, and that is to lock. So lock certifies your data collection is correct, and you're locking your files from any further modifications. Don't do this until you're absolutely sure that every student has responded, or that you know you're not going to get any more responses, that you fixed all your errors. Once you lock, you will not be able to unlock. If you do lock accidentally, let me know. We can do a manual unlock, but it's something we would like to avoid. So you would click Lock here at the very bottom. Lock procedures in process. Click OK to continue. Pops up at the top. Click OK. Now your data is locked. You can see that we uploaded 2 records. We can still download the file that we had previously uploaded. We can still do our edit report. but we no longer have the option to upload a file. We can't lock it. We can't unlock it. It says down here, your data has been locked. So that is the process for doing the follow-up, downloading, entering data, uploading for Q1 of 2018. So things look slightly different for Q2 of 2018. The process is still largely the same. We're going to have to do a little bit of pretending here. So we'll click Change Profile. And now we can select second quarter of 2018 and click Update. Go to Follow-up Collection. So the way that this is different is now we have options for second quarter after exit download and fourth quarter after exit download. So these are the time frames that you'll be following up on for each particular set of students. Where we're going to have to do a little bit of pretending is I'm going to click the second quarter after exit download button. Our test institution is so small, there's not actually any data for us to pull for this time frame. This will work for your particular institution. So we click that, it downloads a file. We click second quarter after exit or fourth quarter after exit, and it downloads a file. So what we're going to pretend is that we actually downloaded two separate files. So here we have what was our second quarter after exit file on the left. And then we have our fourth quarter after exit file on the right. You would then follow up on the students in each of these files separately. So on the left-hand file, you're still following up on the Q2 data, and you would ignore these Q4 data elements. On the right-hand file, you're following up on Q4. So you might see data in Q2 because you would have followed up on a student during the second quarter. So once you populate that information to the table, when you get to fourth quarter follow-up, the system will automatically populate the values that you put in previously. So you'll be able to see what's there. You can make changes if you want to. You shouldn't. Unless you weren't able to contact the student during Q2 and now you've contacted them and you have the ability to ask them about that time period. In that case, there would be blanks that you're filling in, or maybe the students provided you with updated information about that same time period here, April 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2017. But for the most part, you're going to be ignoring these Q2 values. You'll just be following up on the Q4 date range, which is October 1st, 2017 to December 31st, 2017. And then you're simply asking them for that time period. Were they employed? Were they not? Yes or no. You can always update the PSE information. Maybe the student has entered PSE where they hadn't previously. Maybe you have new information. Again, keep the earliest enrolled in PSE date possible. But maybe they had enrolled in PSE when you followed up during the second quarter after exit. Now you're following up fourth quarter after exit. They finished a credential. You can update that information. or again, maybe you weren't able to get a hold of the student previously and now you can change this information. The way that this functions differently than that Q1 is that once you have downloaded and you filled out both files for the distinct time periods, you're going to upload a single file. So you would take and you would copy the records from one file and you would paste them into the other file. Then remember to delete the column headers before you save to upload. You click Save As, again, save it somewhere where you'll know where it's at. So this file, the way I would save it would be FY18Q2, that's the time frame that you selected, and then 4 records. Again, remember that you'll have to indicate the number of records that you're uploading to the system. Since we combined each file individually had 2 records, we're uploading a single combined file, so that will have 4 records. You would save that, and then you would go through that same upload process that we talked about previously. This time we're putting 4 instead of 2. You would choose your file. I don't know if this will let us upload it. Yep. It's not actually allowing us to upload because it's not expecting there to be any data for that particular time frame. Again, this is particular to our test institution because we don't have a lot of students in it. You won't run into the same issue when you do it at your center. If you have any issues, you can let me know. We can get on one-on-one. We can work with your institution's data, but FERPA precludes me from opening up one of your institutions to use as a test. So that is pretty much the extent of the system up to this point. How to download, values to put in, how to save, how to upload back. Are there any questions?
Chris?
Yes, Debbie.
Can you tell me again what dates it actually covers, like the quarter 2 checking in the quarter 4?
So if you've selected Q1 of 2018, it's selecting students who exited during the second quarter of 2017. And then you'll be following up about the fourth quarter of 2017. So the dates that you would be following up on for that time frame would be April 1st to June 30th of 2017. But that will change based on the quarter that you select. And that's why we put, to open up one of these files again, that's why we put this here so that you know you don't have to calculate that on your own. You'll know just based off the people that you're pulling, you can look here and you know that you're following up on that date range, which would be fourth quarter of fiscal year 2017.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I know many of you are on spring break currently, so we have a Q&A webinar scheduled for next week for the 29th at 2 p.m. That'll be a Q&A to ask about follow-up, TABE, anything that you have questions about. We will also be scheduling one for the next week after that, April 5th, to give you guys an opportunity to get back from spring break, to download these files if you haven't already, start your follow-up questionnaires, and then upload and ask any questions you might have about the process. A couple people have asked about due dates. Obviously, because this just got released, we're playing some catch up, and the window is closing on our ability to follow up on 2017 students. So for that reason, we need to do quarters 1 and 2 as soon as possible. Under normal circumstances where we've been doing this for a period of time and we're not playing catch up, when you start a quarter, so when we start Q4, you can download the Q4 follow-up file, and then we would like to see everyone have that file completed, uploaded, and locked by the end of that quarter. So obviously, we're working through almost an entire year of follow-up at this point, but we need to have Q1 done as soon as possible. There is a sunset date on being able to collect this data, which gives us about a year, a little over a year to follow up. So we're seeing that end for some of the students who exited in Q2 of 2017 now. So get to this as soon as you can. I know this isn't as easy as just telling you to do it. You're going to have to, one, get a hold of the students, and two, you're going to have to convince them to give you their employment information. We are asking, someone asked this morning if we could put a sector of employment as opposed to putting the actual employer name. I'm going to think about that, check on that, and see if we need that. We have that ability. When we do a UI data match, it actually returns to us the employer's federal employer ID number, and not the name. So I'll double check and see if that is a possibility. That might make it a little easier for some students to tell you where they're working, if or how much they're making, if they know that we're not going to report their place of employment. This information does not get sent to Department of Ed. We use this information in-house at KBOR to calculate the performance metrics, and then we upload aggregate data. I don't know that that makes it any better because we're still a state agency, so I don't know if that's reassuring to students, but you can tell them this information doesn't go to the federal government. Any other questions? Well, if not, I'll stay on the line for another couple minutes in case anyone does have a question.